All right, very happy to go out to the phones. Our next guest is a contributor to Spot Track, also the Front Office Show. You can follow him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Does a heck of a job covering the league, and he's back on Rip City Mornings. Keith, good morning. It's great to have you back on the show, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, so what are you hearing from the people you speak with around the league about the debut of Wembanyama at Summer League, especially with that bounce-back game in number 2?
Yeah, the second game was more what people expected to see against that level of competition. And I think, that first game, he looked like he was tired. He looked like he was just, a guy whose season had just ended only a week or so, by, I guess, about 2 weeks by that point earlier. And he looked, pretty wiped out. So, that wasn't unexpected that he didn't look that great in that first game. Second game, a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident, and everybody felt pretty good about it. So I'm not saying, people think he's going to put those kind of numbers up in real NBA games, but they feel like he's going to be pretty good, and he's going to be pretty good pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch, Keith. Like, I was surprised at his vision and his feel for the game, but he looks like a guy that you can run the offense through. And I'm wondering if the Spurs will run things through him because of his playmaking ability. And if you put a couple of, smart guys, veterans who have been there and done that know where to position themselves on the court, they could have great success with Wemby, who's running the offense.
Yeah, I think a big chunk of why the Spurs, some of the moves they made this summer were, seen as eating some veteran contracts for guys like Jetty Osman and Reggie Bullock. But I think what it ultimately came down to is, they were in a position where it became, all right, what we can do is add a couple veteran guys around this guy. We're going to have Doug McDermott there. They guaranteed Zach Collins' contract and are going to keep him around because they don't want to be, hey, we got a locker room of Wembanyama and 14 other guys who are all, a couple years older than him. They want to have the right kind of mix of vets around him and try to be competitive right out of the gate. So it's going to be fun. And like you said, offensively, yeah, he's going to do a lot. He's going to get the opportunity to do a whole lot of things. He's going to, be a screen and roll guy, a pick and pop guy, a guy who they'll attack mismatches with, and a guy they'll just straight run offense through from the top of the key. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch it all come together.
Yeah, there's no question. Now, it was a very limited sample size, but what'd you make of Scoot's debut with Portland?
Yeah, I thought he looked great. You can see that he has spent 2 years playing against, grown men and playing against guys who are, NBA ready from a physical standpoint with that. That showed up. He just had a sense of the physicality right away. I think that's what you see with these guys who coming in out of the draft. A lot of them, when they haven't played at like the G League level or the highest European level, they go in and they're bouncing off bodies instead of being the one sending guys bouncing. And you could see Scoot went in there, absorbed contact multiple times. He's great at changing pace. The game is going to be played at whatever pace he wants it to be played at pretty quickly here into his rookie season. And, I think Portland's very, very fortunate to have both him and Shaedon Sharpe as kind of the key guys moving forward.
Yeah, there's no question. Do you think there are people around the league that look at Portland and think, man, they were pretty fortunate to get a player at Scoot's level at number 3?
Yeah, there definitely is. There are people who feel like, I talked to multiple people in Vegas who said he should have been the number 2 pick. Charlotte shouldn't have worried about positional fit and any of that stuff with LaMelo Ball. They just should have taken him, and they didn't. And that's Portland, getting fortunate. It's kind of funny. No one's saying he's going to be Michael Jordan by any means, but, a bunch of people were like, once upon a time, Portland skipped out on MJ because they were like, well, we need the center. We don't need another shooting guard. And, and that probably cost them a, championship for 6 in the NBA. And they said now, maybe they're going to reap the benefits of a team drafting for positional fit over talent because he's going to be really good. And he's probably going to be pretty good very quickly.
It's Keith Smith, Spot Track here on Rip City Mornings. We've seen 2 big deals go down over the last couple of years. We saw the deal with Rudy Gobert. We saw the one with Kevin Durant. Dame is probably somewhere in the middle. But, Keith, what do you think is a fair return when the Blazers finally get this deal done and they move Damian Lillard?
Yeah, they're not going to get the Phoenix Suns type of package that they gave for Kevin Durant because I think teams are now realizing, hey, we can't give up every single draft pick that we have in our draft pick coffers. There's also, as much as Damian Lillard is a great player, he's not Kevin Durant's level, right? Durant is a guy who, can really lift you right into title contention all by himself. He's also probably not going to return a Donovan Mitchell type package. Again, the reluctance to trade that many picks, and he's, got a few years on Donovan Mitchell. But they're right to hold out for, hey, we need at least, what I call the equivalent of 3 or 4 first-round picks, pick swaps, and young talent. You've got to give us something in that range, and it can't be just, all right, well, here's salary to match. That's going to have to happen, obviously, in a trade, but they don't want to take on, the big sticking point with Miami has been, we don't need Tyler Hero. We've already got, guys at that spot. We don't need to take on him and his long-term salary. So that's going to be where things are going to take a little while. And as Joe Cronin said, this may take a little bit to come together because you're trying to put together a trade package, where you're seeking a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's no question. Now, the other issue right now with the Trailblazers, assuming that Dame gets moved out, you've got Anthony Simons, you've got Scoot Henderson, you got Shaedon Sharpe. And with the Blazers' new direction of kind of rebuilding and really starting from scratch, I'm just trying to figure out how Anthony Simons fits into the mix because we know that the future backcourt is Scoot and Shaedon Sharpe. But Anthony Simons right now is a starter, and I'm just wondering if they're going to need to move him sooner rather than later so you can open up plenty of minutes for Scoot to make sure that those two guys, Scoot and Shaedon, can grow together.
Yeah, and I think what you can do right now, Anthony Simons is still young enough to fit with those guys. It's not like he's, pushing his late 20s. He's still in his early 20s. So I think what you do for now is you kind of play them almost as a 3-guard group where it's, when I think Scoot will start, right out of the gate. And then, you've got time where Sharpe is big enough. He can play the 3 some, so you can play the 3 of them together at times. But I think you play the 3 of them, in a rotation where the guard minutes between those 3 guys, that's, over 100 minutes of guard minutes. You split them up pretty evenly between the 3 of them, and then somebody else, whoever else is there, kind of picks up whatever's left over. But you put them all out there and let them play together for a little bit because right now you're not as much worried about, well, we got to win games. It's more about, all right, what do we have? Let's go through the process here. Let's see how these guys all fit together.
All right, Keith, I wanted your take on the 2 rule changes. Coaches now will get a second challenge if their first one is successful, and players will get technical fouls now for flopping. What's your take on the rule changes and how they'll be implemented?
Yeah, the first one I think is a really good change. I think it's really a smart change because what happens often with coaches is sometimes you might get a guy gets his 3rd foul or maybe even 4th foul in a first half, and it's a bad call, and they want to use their challenge. And then invariably, then you get to, 2 minutes left, or, let's say 3 minutes left in the 4th quarter, and there's another tough call, and they can't challenge it because they used it in the first half. So I think that's good. I think as long as they kind of keep it moving and we're not spending, 5 minutes on each one of these challenges, then we're good. I think for the other part of it, the technicals for flopping, I think it's a great idea. I'm just not sold on how it's going to be enforced. I think we're going to have to see how that plays out because I think, we have a chance. This could get, potentially a little bit, goofy here with, the way people are kind of getting into enforcing these things. But I think, in the end, I think it's the right thing to do.
All right. Over the next 5 years, who would you rather have, Ja or Zion?
That's a good question. Probably Ja Morant because I do think he'll get past all this off-the-court stuff. And I think he'll come back to being the guy, we saw. And I just feel like he'll actually play in games. If you could tell me they're going to play the same amount of games the rest of the way, I'm going to take Zion Williamson because I think that guy is a special talent, an MVP level talent when he's healthy. I'm just not sure how many games we're going to see him play.
All right. One final question. If you look across the landscape, what team do you think has done the best from draft to free agency to really bolster their squad? Who impressed you?
Yeah, as a kid who grew up just south of Boston, this kills me to say it, but the Lakers had a really good offseason. They re-signed the right guys, that they had to get re-signed, and they did a good job getting guys in free agency who I think are going to be really good fits for them. I think they've just done, a really, really nice job overall with the way they've put that roster together. But, I like what Sacramento did. I think they've had a really nice offseason, with retaining some guys, adding some guys, using their cap space and flexibility to lock up their core long term. So I think they've done a really nice job too. It's one of those things where, maybe it's because I'm coming out of Las Vegas and out of Summer League where, every team tells you, the draft fell right off right after the guy we picked. And, it's but that guy was tops on our board, and it was, oh, he's tops on your board even though you had the 25th pick. That's interesting. But it's everybody feels great right now, right? Everybody's really happy with their free agent moves, their draft picks and all that. So maybe I'm caught up in the optimism, but I think a lot of teams did a really nice job with this summer, considering the uncertainty of, all the new CBA and all the things that come with that.
Honestly, my favorite player of all time is Larry Bird. I don't know how old you are, Keith, but did you grow up with Bird and get a chance to see him play, or did you become a fan as a youngster after Bird?
Nope, I did. Those were my guys. My family says my first title I'm allowed to claim is 1984 because it's the first one I can actually remember watching. So, Larry Bird is. Larry Bird and Tom Brady, they're my 1A of all-time athletes in my life for the teams, that I grew up loving.
Have you ever had a chance to interview Bird?
I have, yeah. I've actually, had a chance. I'll tell you a very quick, funny story. The first time I ever met him was at the old Orlando Summer League, and I was pretty terrified. And at this point, I've been doing media things for a long time, but I didn't know what to say. And he can be a little curmudgeonly, especially at that point in life. But he could not have been nicer. And then we sat and talked for about 15 minutes. All kind of him telling me stories from those days and stuff like that. And I couldn't have been happier in the moment.
Dude, that is so awesome. I love watching Larry Bird play. Those teams with Bird, Parrish, and McHale and DJ and stuff were amazing. And that's what I was exposed to as a youngster watching basketball with the Lakers and Celtics in the finals, which is great. I love that, man. That's so cool. You got a chance to sit down and have a chat with him because you know how it is. It's like my hero growing up was John Elway. And before I met him for the first time, I was nervous about meeting him because I'm like, what if he's not nice? It's going to crush my little heart.
That's exactly how I was, and he couldn't have been better, when I introduced. It was funny. I think he was a little wary because he's like, I don't want to do a bunch of media stuff right now. But then when I told him, why I was introducing myself, it couldn't have gone better. So I was absolutely thrilled. And I've talked to him in passing a couple times since then. But yeah, it was a great experience. And yeah, that's the NBA of the 80s and 90s is what I grew up on. And it's funny, but I somehow made it through the other side, and I still like the game today, where it seems like a lot of people, like, the game's, terrible now. I know that's how my dad feels, but he also grew up on the Bill Russell teams and thinks everybody travels and they, do everything wrong possible now. So.
Oh, dude, that's so good. All right, follow him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA, Spot Track, the Front Office Show. Hey, Keith, appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the summer, and we'll catch up in the future.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.